Good evening, everyone. My name is Jenna Shulman, and I'm an independent educational consultant in Morris County, New Jersey. I'm the founder and owner of Jenna Shulman College Consulting, where I help guide students and their families throughout the entire college application process. Tonight, I am co-hosting part 2 of our 2-part Heading Off to College webinar alongside Debra Shames, who will introduce herself in just a minute. For those of you who missed part 1 of our webinar, I emailed everyone the recording on YouTube, and I will also post the link in the chat. In that webinar, we talked to an attorney about legal documents that every parent should know about and every student needs. We also discussed executive functioning skills to succeed in college, which I think everyone, including myself, found super helpful. If you need to leave this webinar early, or if you have a friend who you know will miss it, I guess some people didn't get my email, which is weird. Don't worry, we will be sending a recording tonight and publishing out sometime this week. And as always, I will email everyone the link. I'm sorry to flood up your inbox. Now for the introduction. Since I started my business, I've worked with over 200 families, and I've continued to stay in touch with them throughout their college journeys. I follow them on Instagram. I get, updates every semester about how they're doing. It's really a lot of fun. As much as it's my job to guide students throughout the college process, and arguably a bigger part of my job is to help alleviate the stress and anxiety for college-bound students and their parents, of course, who may or may not have more stress for their kids going off to college, which is totally understandable. While there's so much positivity in starting college and so much fun and so much adventure, a new chapter ahead of all of you in your lives, it can also bring a lot of worry. You have to balance a new place, a new room, a new location, a new roommate, a new schedule, and new friends. And, all of this without your parents or friends or siblings physically by your side. So Deb and I both are such strong believers in breaking the stigma of mental health and encouraging our students to talk openly about anxiety, stress, self-image, and sometimes even depression. So we are so happy tonight that we have an expert as well as students of all kind of different backgrounds and experiences to talk about this scary but exciting transition. So that's enough of me. And without further ado, I'd like to hand this over to Deb to introduce herself and our amazing guests. I think I have to unmute her and start her video.
And you have to put my video on. Okay, I'll start talking even without the video. That's okay. All right, so thank you, Jenna. Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, as Jenna said, I'm Deb Shames. I am an IEC located in Bergen County, but I work with students all over the place. And I started Personal Best College Coaching, which had a few other names, over 17 years ago. And my primary goal is to take this inherently stressful process of college admissions and make it less stressful and even fun. Jenna, I still don't have camera, just so you know.
Do you want to, here, let's try to start it. I want them to see you.
I gotta smile. So I agree with everything that Jenna said, and I really want to reiterate how important it is for students to really be proactive and practice self-care, especially as they move on to college, but really, in this current very stressful several months we've been living through with COVID and not being able to see your friends and life being turned upside down in so many ways from what we know, I think that's just added another layer of stress. I actually, had a close friend of mine whose daughter will now be entering her junior year at Cornell. And when she was a high school senior, she said to her mom, Mom, I want to go see a therapist this summer. And she had not felt the need for that prior to that. And her mom asked her why. And she said, I don't think the first time I decide to see someone should be when I'm having a crisis. I think I want to know what it feels like and what kinds of scenarios might necessitate my seeking out that help when I'm on campus. And I think that that's kind of the message that we want to put forward, is you need to be proactive in your self-care, in your mental health. And toward that end, we're going to start out with Debra Diaz, LCSW, who has a private practice in Ramsey. And I'm going to let her introduce herself more fully, but she's going to talk to us about how to navigate the college transition and share her expertise with us. And if you have any questions, you can definitely post them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. But oh, I didn't realize she asked me to. There I am. Hi. And so so I wanted to bring in Debra and let her introduce herself. And then after we do a little Q&A with Debra, we are going to then introduce our students who are at various stages of their college experience. So thank you so much, Debra, for being with us.
Thank you, guys. Well, you guys make me sound like some expert, and I totally don't feel like an expert, but I guess I do have lots of experience when it comes to this kind of stuff. I guess a little bit about me. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I have a private practice. I have been running for about 10 years. Before that, I worked in a special ed school for about 4 years before I had my children. And yeah, and I did the college thing too. I did 4 years of my undergrad at Adelphi University in Long Island, and I did my master's degree at NYU. So that's sort of a little background about me. I've worked with a lot of anxiety, depression over the years, ADHD. Those are sort of the ones that come to me the most around this area. I work in Bergen County. So that's sort of what I see the most of in my area. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So what do you feel, you know, this, I remember when I dropped my oldest off at Syracuse and they had a parent presentation for, you know, dealing with all the stress of dropping your child off. And I thought, oh my God, I dropped him off with 3,500 people. Why am I one of only, my husband and I were like 2 of 27 people in the entire presentation on how to drop your kid at college. And I'm crying and it was very stressful. And the woman who was there talked about this whole different, beyond adolescent psychology, this whole concept of emerging adulthood. And that was a whole niche. And I never really thought about what that's like for kids. But, you know, what do you feel that as first year college students, what kinds of issues are you seeing?
I feel like, you know, I started my practice seeing mostly children, adolescents. I was doing a lot of play therapy, and it sort of morphed over the years into teenagers. So then I was dealing with a lot of high school stuff, a lot of high school trouble, a lot of academic stress, you know, that push for college, that push for good SAT scores and ACT, and you know, like just the downfall of all that pressure would sort of trickle down into my office. And now I have a lot of college students in my practice. So it's like, it's almost transitioned more towards like, now I have all these college students who are either just going in or who transitioning out and trying to figure out what to do after. You know, they're not sure they got their degree in the right thing, and they're not sure if they should keep going or go back or try to work for a while. And so there's been a lot more college students sort of making their way in and sort of wanting to have those conversations with trying to figure out what comes next for them. And this whole COVID thing has thrown in a whole other set of things. You know, I have two clients in particular that lost their jobs. So like they were graduating, having had jobs lined up and lost them. And so it's just sort of having to reevaluate everything about what their plans were for the next couple years and really figuring out where they go from there. So yeah, there's just a lot, I think, of that change. I think any change in life is such a stressful thing. You know, they always say like marriage and moving and children, like those are such big stressors in people's lives. But I think so are all these other changes, including going to college and new classes and you know, picking a major. You know, these kids are being talked at middle school about college, about what they want to do for college. I mean, I have middle schoolers coming in talking about how their teachers are talking about AP classes, and I'm like, AP classes? I'm like, you're not even out of 8th grade yet. Like, why are they like they're trying to prep them to build up enough stamina in middle school to then succeed better in high school, so then they could succeed for college. And it's like nobody is talking about mentally what that's doing to everybody, to just have those kind of casual conversations with 7th graders, and nobody's sort of wondering about the repercussions of putting that kind of stress on these kids. And so there's just a lot of pressure of succeeding and doing it well. And, you know, all that internal dialogue that they create in themselves of like having to produce.
And how do you like, when you have students, you know, reaching out to you who have gone on to college, is there like number one mental health issue that you find them struggling with when they get onto campus?
For me, it's always anxiety. Anxiety is like the number one killer of everybody. I feel like, just that change. I think anxiety for anybody is pretty normal in those kinds of situations. But then if you're just sort of genetically predisposed to like true diagnosable anxiety disorders, it just becomes exponential, like, so people are walking around at like a 10 and they should be at a 2 normally, and like, where do you go when you're at a 10 all the time? So like, it leaves that threshold so little to like that wiggle room of like being okay versus not okay. And then you get into all these other negative choices that you can make when you're away at college, right? You're on your own. And so like, there's nobody sort of guiding you. So, a lot of people are turning to drugs and alcohol and thinking that it's sort of the normal college, experience, but then, it's balancing that, and understanding that lots of kids go and study 5 days a week and party 1 day a week and still have a fun time. But it's, when you start abusing those things to function, to get through those stressful times and you're doing it more than a couple times a week, it's too much, it's not the healthiest way to manage and cope with that stress.
Right, right. When do you think students, how should students evaluate what's the difference between like normal anxiety and like a big issue, that they should actually seek help for? Or does it even need to be a big issue?
I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a big issue. I think, it's such a misconception of therapy is that you have to have some sort of a problem to come in, but sometimes you just need somebody to talk to and somebody to process your experiences in life. And so it's not always about like, I don't really need to diagnose people when they come in. That's not really sort of my goal. My goal is just to help them with whatever's going on for them. So that it's such an interesting thing because like, I always joke with my anxious clients because I feel like they don't, sometimes until I identify that they have anxiety, they don't really realize it. And I'll say like, well, you think it's normal because it's what you think, but other people who don't suffer from anxiety aren't thinking those things. They aren't having those racing thoughts and they aren't having those like just crushing doubts like, am I good enough? Can I do this? How can I do this? How can I go on tonight and talk to you guys? Like that's all just that quiet anxiety voice in the back of our head that's just pressing on us. That really doesn't press on a lot of people. We just don't realize it when it's us. I mean, I guess for me, the biggest thing in the beginning, if you notice that you're losing concentration, like you're not able to concentrate in your classes and get your work done, that's like a number one. Like, don't wait. I have so many cases where people wait until things get really bad and then they'll call me and then I'm like, oh, but so you've known about this for 3 years or for 2 years, like sometimes people really wait and they've been feeling this bad for quite a while and then it takes just that much longer to sort of backtrack and fix the problem.
Well, I think and building on that, I think that part of it is because people feel this need to be independent.
Oh yeah, do it by themselves.
And everybody's posting on Insta, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever, that life is so perfect. And really, I try to tell kids, that who's going to put out their horrible stuff.
Yeah. I think one of my favorite stories is one of my teenagers went to a party once, that she probably would have had FOMO for not going to. And she's like, we posted these pictures and it looked so much fun while we took that picture. And then after the picture was done, everybody was just sitting around. She's like, it wasn't really even fun, but it's like they made it look fun for the picture. And she's like, I wasn't really ever missing anything at
right.
Right. So it's all that glamorized, like this is what it should look like and this is how fabulous it should be. And it's not always like that. I think life is messy and I think life is bumpy and you have to just sort of be ready for those and expect them, not expect it to be perfect, not expect to get straight A's. I think that's all that internal pressure of having to perform. Whereas, I think it's just being in the moment and really just enjoying the experience for what it is.
Yeah, no, definitely. Do you think that like if somebody tends to struggle and they know that there's someone who has difficulty with adjusting to new situations, what are some steps you would recommend for them to be proactive in the situation so maybe they don't struggle quite so much?
I mean, I feel like they're going to be such basic things that I want to assume people know, but like, I don't think everybody always knows. I mean, like the very basic level is, take care of your health. Like people are not always eating when they're supposed to, sleeping when they're supposed to. Those things are huge contributing factors to stress and people don't sort of give it enough attention. Like it's just a natural part of your day. But if you're eating crap and pizza and you're just going to the cafeteria and just eating junk, like that's not enough to sustain yourself mentally or physically. And that stuff will start to wear on you. exercising. Like people don't give enough attention to just like going for a walk every day and like just being physical in that way. And they're not taking care of just sort of those basic things. I think the other like overarching thing I tell all of my clients is like have a routine, especially when you go to college and there is no real routine, right? You go to your class and then it's just free time, and it's like you have these little windows where you have classes on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then sometimes not at all on Tuesdays. And so that becomes a very bad recipe for just chaos because there's no structure to those days then. So it's about sort of creating a structure within those days. Wake up at the same time every day, get up and do a little bit of exercise, go and have lunch with friends, but like have this routine where you're doing those things every single day consistently, because having those just like one day I just slept all day and then one day I had classes all day and then the next day I slept, like it's not good for us mentally to just have I think our bodies and brains thrive in that consistency of like wake up and this is what I do, this is my routine, this is what I do. And so sometimes it's going to be different depending on the day, but that I have this basic structure to my day.
Right. So a lot of kids didn't have, most of us didn't have the structure that we would normally even try to put in place because of COVID this year, whether you're high school students or college students. So in addition to what you've already said, are there any other suggestions you have for students who are trying to navigate all of those usual challenge plus the stress of COVID? Because now a lot of students are going to be going to campuses where there are going to be a lot of restrictions on what they can do. So the normal ways, particularly for students going off to freshman year who haven't established those strong relationships, and now may not be able to, have all the extracurricular activities. You can't have the big social gatherings. You might not be able to eat in the dining halls. Any thoughts on how to try to navigate that piece of it on top of everything else?
I think that's such a big question because this is all such a new thing for us with COVID, whereas, so much of what I would tell people is to stay within their routine, connect with people who they're close with. I think that's going to be difficult when people are away at college. I think that's what I'm going to say. Be having Zoom, talks and FaceTimes with friends, even from home, even if you're away, because I think the structure of what's going to be happening for so many people, a lot of my clients are saying like they're doing a hybrid of online and in-person classes, but they have to wear masks. Almost all my clients that are going away are being put in singles. So like you're sort of losing that roommate situation that like bonds people when you first go away. So then it's about trying to make friends as much as you can with the people in your dorm, just to have that contact. I think that lack of contact for me has been the biggest killer right now of what's going on with COVID. Is all this isolation, while healthy for us in COVID senses, is so bad for our mental health. It's just so bad for us to not have that interaction. So I would say join as many clubs as you're able to. If they do them virtually, who cares? They do them virtually. At least it's connecting with other people. I think trying to find that time to connect in any way possible. It's so hard because every school's doing it differently. So I can't just say like do X and that this is going to help. I think whatever your school allows, try to be as social in those ways as possible. I think that's what sort of keeps freshman year sort of sane, because you have other people you're going through it with who are also freshmen, who are also away from home. So there's just a big sense of like that camaraderie of being together in that situation. And I think we're going to sort of lose out on that given that, like I think some of my clients were talking to me, they had like virtual orientation. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, orientation was like the best 3 days of my college experience. And like, you're just like doing it online and not everybody goes. And so it's such a strange environment. And it's so hard for me to give advice without really knowing what everybody's like experience is going to be on campus. But I would say try to connect with people in the dorms as much as possible, find people that you have, something in common with, find people in your classes maybe that you can connect with and be like, let's go grab some pizza, like any connection.
With our masks on.
With our masks on, sitting 6 feet apart. Yeah, I have a lot of clients that are being sent back a little early to school because the schools are wanting them to quarantine for 2 weeks. So I think everything about the next few months is going to be really just unsure, which I think is really bad for anxiety. I think when you're anxious, you want to know what to expect. And there's just a whole lot of not knowing what to expect right now because of everything going on, which is making it really difficult to maintain. And I think that's why I say like keeping a routine for yourself at least daily is a big start, because it's at least something that you can control. You can control when you wake up and you can control what you put in your body. You can control what time you exercise, you know, you can control what time you want to go to the library and study, you know, like you have to control what you are able to so that you can keep yourself feeling grounded.
Right, understood. And what do you think about, you know, in terms of, you know, I forgot what I was going to ask you. Like, you know, is there a normal time that it should take, you know, without COVID and all that kind of stuff? But I find that, you know, students go off to college thinking, oh my God, it's going to be the greatest 4 years of my life. And I know I'll address this with the students when we go to the panel. But, you know, how long do you normally find that it should take? Not that there should be shoulds. As my yoga instructor says, there are no shoulds in yoga.
I mean,
but how long should it take to transition?
I guess I mean, I feel like I think any kind of a new routine in your life takes 3 to 6 months, you know, so like 3 to 6 months of just consistency will make it feel a little bit less scary and will make it more of a habit of like, this is where I am, this is what I do every day, this is where I go every day. So just doing that every day for like 3 to 6 months is sort of what settles you into feeling comfortable in a place. I mean, I have a lot of students who go in and like a month later they're transferring home, and it's like, you know, they didn't really push through to try to get through like that horrible, uncomfortable stuff in the beginning, you know, and then they'll come home and come back to therapy. And I'm like, oh, I wish you stayed on campus and found somebody to talk to there. You know, like that would have been a much better way to sort of get through that rough patch because they'd have somebody on campus.
Right. And I think that that's definitely, like, I work with a lot of transfer students, and that the biggest time they've done studies, the biggest time for students to want to transfer is Thanksgiving of freshman year.
Well, they come home in that break and they're like, I don't want to go back.
Right, exactly. And I think that, you know, that's definitely, if they're putting some of the stuff in place that you're saying. And also it's a matter of, you know, you've been with a lot of the kids, for most of the students that you know are coming out of our area, you've certainly been with students for most of your high school career, largely for your middle school and even your elementary school career. And so they expect that they're going to go in and have that instant group of friends. And then when that doesn't necessarily happen, they feel like they failed, and somehow like everybody else figured it out and they didn't find their place yet.
Yep. It's hard. I think it's hard. I think it's why I really encourage people to try to make friends within even the classes that they're in, because those are people that they're going to end up being with and spending a lot of time with because they're in the same major. So like they tend to just be in a lot of the same classes. I think it's why I suggest joining clubs and activities as much as you can, because at least you're around people who have the same interests as you are. So it's like those are almost the only kinds of ways that you can make those connections other than just dorms. You know, dorms are great in some ways for that. You know, if you're being friendly and introducing yourself to people in the dorm, it's a really good way to meet new people. But like outside of that, if you isolate, it's going to be really hard to make those friendships and make those connections.
Right. All right. Last question, because I want to definitely give time for people to ask questions and to get to our student panel. What recommendations do you have for parents who are trying to support their students who might be struggling and who might be homesick because some students have never been away before, and the parent doesn't want to, you know, feel like they're not supporting their child, but they also want to encourage them to stick it out and to seek out the help that they might need on campus?
I guess my two biggest things are, you know, communication, having an open line of communication with parents and students, because I feel like without that, you know, my kids tend to think that other people can read their minds or know what they need, and that's just not the way it works. You know, I'll say a lot, did you talk to your mother about that, or did you tell your parents about that? And they say no, and they just expect their parents should know that they're stressed or that they're overwhelmed. And I'm like, but you have to say those words. People don't just know how you feel without you saying it. You know, they can't just read that sometimes. So for me, just having that open communication immediately. And I guess for the parent side, I would say to listen, you know, listen and not always try to fix or help. I think parents want to give advice immediately, and that just shuts kids down. Like, kids don't want your advice sometimes. They just want to be heard and feel like you've listened to them and like empathized with them, you know, just validated their experience instead of just being like, okay, well, we can bring you home, or here's what we can do, or we can call Mrs. Shames and we can figure this out. Like, you know, I think parents go right into fixing mode and they just don't listen sometimes. You know, so many of my complaints, even all the way up to my like 22-year-old clients, is like, my parents aren't just, they aren't listening to me. Like, they don't like the way I'm doing it. So they're trying to tell me this is the way I should do it. And I'm like, well, maybe you should try to explain to them that it, you know, you're entitled to have a different approach, and maybe they could respect your opinion on that. And, you know, so much of it is just lost in translation because people don't try to communicate. They'll go, oh, I'm not going to tell my mom because she's just going to tell me, well, I should do this, or I should just go to a
Right.
tutor, or I should just go to academic services, or, like I know what my mom's going to say. And I don't think parents spend enough time just listening, and really just asking those kind of questions, those open-ended questions of like, well, how are you feeling in that class? And how are you feeling about, your roommate situation? And, like, I think they want to fix. And I get that. I feel that way with my own children, that I want to swoop in, but I really have to hold back sometimes and just hear what they're saying to me.
Right, definitely, definitely, great point. Okay, so any final closing words or thoughts that you want to leave us with in your wise wisdom? And I don't know, I don't see anything in the Q&A, but that's okay. We might get some at the end.
I mean, I guess my biggest takeaway is like, don't wait to the last minute. There's no shame and there's no embarrassment with going to seek treatment. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. I feel like so many people are so scared to come see me because they feel like it means something. And I don't feel like it means anything. I think that, we're all just helping each other out. They're coming to you for help. So how is it any different than them coming to me for help? We all need help sometimes doing something. And so what's the shame in asking for help? But I mean, I have this trouble with all the way up to my adults, just not wanting to ask for help. I can do it alone. And it's like, but why? Nobody is doing it alone. Look around you. No one is doing it alone. So you shouldn't have to. Just because you're 18 or 19 and you think you can do it, it doesn't mean you have to do it alone. And so sometimes having a therapist just sort of in your corner, it's just nice. It's nice to feel like you have someone on your side that's there to just sort of hold you and support you through it. So like seeking out, counseling on campus. I went to therapy for 4 years while I was away at Adelphi, and it was totally worth it. I regret nothing. I really needed that support for that transition for myself. So why would I ever judge anyone else for needing that too? So all my clients that come up and graduate and are going to college, I'm immediately like, okay, well, I can't keep seeing you because you're going to like Colorado, but I'm like, find a therapist, locally. Psychology Today is a great way to sort of get access to therapists that are in an area where you are. So if you're in Rhode Island or if you're in Maine, you can look up on Psychology Today with your zip code and find therapists. They'll tell you what insurance they accept, what their fees are, who they treat, and really just the mental health services on campus. I think it's different for every school, so it really depends. My experience with my clients has been a mixed bag. Sometimes they have great services and sometimes they're like, well, we can see you once. And I'm like, once.
Right. Yeah, no, it definitely varies by school, but I think schools are
I'm
recognizing it.
I'm hoping that the trend is going more towards, this is important. We're losing people we don't need to lose because of this. So, it's time to do something proactive to stop it before it gets bad.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your expertise and for sharing everything. I'm going to turn it back over to Jenna, who's going to introduce our students, or at least generally they're going to introduce themselves, but
yeah, Debra, where can students and families find you and contact you if they need any?
Me personally, I have a website if anyone wants to reach out to me. It's just DebraDiazLCSW.com, so it's at least easy to remember. And my email address and contact information is all there. So if anybody has any questions that they want to ask me or resources that they want to ask me about, that's fine. There's some online services that are really helpful in these situations when you can't access maybe counseling on your campus. So if anybody wants any of that information, they can just reach out to me and let me know.
terrific.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to introduce our student panel. I had them switch their names to say their names and their schools on there. I see we have a fellow Terp. Yay. I thought I needed to put that in there. So I guess I'll have them go one by one and introduce themselves a little bit more about their journey, right? If you didn't start at a top choice schools, I know some of you have transferred. Would you change anything? And then I guess like one thing that you love or would change about your college experience. I know that's a lot there. So just a little bit of an overview of you. We'll start with the Terp. Brianna, I'm putting you guys on the spot here. Sorry.
Hi. I got so excited when you said Terp. Okay, so hi, my name is Brianna Bauer. I'm a junior accounting major at the University of Maryland. Sorry, I'm gonna try to. Okay, I'm a junior accounting major at the University of Maryland. I live in New York, so my school's only about 4 hours away from home, so I want it to be kind of in driving distance. I came in as a freshman connection student, which was a program that offered smaller classes for students that didn't get directly into the university, which was a really positive experience for me. It made the college adjustment process a lot easier because I had smaller classes and later class time. So it worked for me and a lot of my friends in it. I currently hold a leadership position in Greek Life, Terpthon, and Maryland League Club, and I'm in 2 honor societies, so I'm happy to talk more about that. I'm really thankful for my leadership programs, actually, because it helped me figure out I wanted to minor in leadership. So that's something I've been able to talk about in different application processes for internships and everything, so it's been really helpful. So one thing I would change about my college experiences, I didn't meet my freshman roommate before going to college. I know this probably isn't going to be an issue with COVID and everything, but it did end up like I had to move into a single with 2 months left of school because it got really stressful. So that was hectic, and I can talk about that too if needed. And one thing I love so much about my school is the big campus. So I knew I wanted a big school going into it, but being here and seeing all the resources and people around me, it's a really great place for me.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. We'll go on the opposite side, a much smaller school, Allie of Franklin and Marshall. So I'm going to unmute her. Kind of.
Hi. Hi, I'm Allie. I went to Franklin and Marshall College. I just graduated in May. I'm from New Jersey and I live about 3 hours away from where the campus was. So again, good driving distance. My parents could come up for the day and that was really nice. For me, some things I really loved about F&M was, again, how small the school was. You could have really small classes and you could be really friendly with your professors, which is always super nice. And in addition, I was able to create my own major. One of the reasons I was super interested in F&M is because they had their own already created interdisciplinary majors. And I thought about majoring in one of those and then realized that one wasn't for me. And I made up my own because I couldn't make up my mind. And so I combined sociology, film, and art into a major I called Arts for Social Change. And so I really liked how supportive they were of that whole process. In addition, I also joined Greek Life at Franklin and Marshall, which is something I was vehemently against in the college application process, just solely based on the portrayal of sororities in movies. I knew nothing. And at a small school, it's very, very different than how it's portrayed on television. And yeah, I was able to find a cool small feminist sorority. We work with Girl Scouts. It was cool. So that was definitely something that surprised me. And I've done a lot of stuff in the arts. So feel free to ask questions about anything, music, film, dance, whatever. And I'll end with this. The one thing I would have loved to do more is explore the local town of Lancaster.
I hear it's such a growing and blossoming town. I have not been, but yeah. All right. Let's go to Florida, University of Miami, Stone. Go Canes.
See me?
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. How's it going, everyone? My name is Stone Hardy. I'm from Carolina, New Jersey, in Morris County. To tell you a little about myself, I am about to graduate University of Miami, December 2020, with an accounting and finance major. So interesting story. I'm actually a transfer from Elon University. I went to Elon University for 3 semesters. I realized that I wanted more of a change in terms of an atmosphere and the community around the types of students there. So I reached back out to Deb my sophomore year and made the transfer. And, it was an interesting transition, but in the end, I'm loving it so far. It's the best decision. I can confidently say that it's the best decision I've ever made. I've joined Greek Life there, and my favorite part about University of Miami is just the vibrant community that's surrounding the campus. The weather is always awesome, as you can tell. And one thing that I would change from my whole college experience would be I would have loved to have done more research on the types of majors going into, and even my freshman year, because I was kind of undecided my freshman year. So I would have loved to have a little bit more insight about the types of majors, even though, business, I want to do business, but there's so many different sectors of business. So I would have loved to, have a little more insight about which major I was going into. But we're here now, and yeah, that's been my experience so far.
Stone, you have a really cool name.
Thank you. It's actually my middle name, but I've been going by it my whole life, so easy to remember.
It gives you some good street cred and some edge.
I hope.
All right, Evan, I'm gonna hand it over to you. I think you're the one in the car, so hopefully we can hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry if I get like cut out. It's probably just bad connection. Let me know and just say we can't hear you. But my name is Evan. I go to Tulane University. I'm going into my senior year. So I was kind of my story is a little interesting. I was being recruited for track and field. And I was very focused on that in high school and just very focused on grades and track were like my two main things. You know, I didn't go out. I didn't know what partying was in high school. I didn't do any of that. And Tulane is known as a very big party school. So at the time I was unsure that was something I wanted to throw myself into. But I ultimately decided, you know, ever since I was 10 years old, I was saying I wanted to go to Tulane University. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna see how it is. And I kind of acclimated into that lifestyle. I ended up actually quitting track and field my freshman year because it wasn't the same experience that I thought it was going to be. It was a little bit of a smaller team, a smaller environment than what I was used to in high school. So it wasn't, you know, what I was looking for. And then I decided to rush a fraternity. And since then, I've really kind of thrown myself into that a lot. I was just my fraternity president this past year. This year, I'll actually be serving on the Interfraternity Council, which is like Tulane Council for Greek Life. So I've really kind of dedicated myself to that. And then what would I have changed about my experience? Honestly, I got really lucky when I picked Tulane. There's nothing that I would really change about my experience. I really ended up just falling in love with it right when I set foot on campus. But I think maybe I would try and explore majors and education programs a little bit more. I'm a 5-year master's in accounting program with a undergraduate degree in finance. But I would just like to see, you know, maybe have my eyes open a little bit more freshman year and see what the other options were. I'm happy and I'm excited to go into the field that I'm going into, but I definitely think like I should have went in with a little bit more of an open mind my freshman year. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Are you traveling anywhere fun?
Just back home from Indiana. I had to help my friend move out of his apartment at Indiana University. So we're in the car for another 6 hours or something.
Oh, you can chime in too then. All right, and Caroline from Columbia University.
Hey everyone, my name's Caroline. Sorry, I'm going to turn on my camera. And I go to Columbia University. I'm studying mathematics and computer science, and I'm a rising senior. So when I originally started Columbia, I started in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. But then after my sophomore year, I realized that I didn't want to be an engineer. So I changed into the Columbia College, which basically encompasses most of Columbia's undergrad and all of like the non-engineering majors. And so one of the reasons why I really like Columbia is the community that I've experienced there, and also the amount of resources and how it's connected to so many like grad schools. So you can have such a wide variety of like research and classes. And like, for example, some professors from the business school teach classes for undergrads. And those have been like some of my favorite classes that I've taken in college. I'm originally from New York City, so I've literally lived here for my whole life and continued here for college. And originally I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in the city for another 4 years, but I just knew that in college I wanted to be in or near a city because I wanted to have access to like all of the urban experiences. And also I wanted to have like a concrete campus and somewhat of like that typical college experience with an environment that's like focused on campus life. So overall, I just liked Columbia as a college, and I thought that that outweighed the notion that I would be living in the same city.
Awesome. I love I think I can see the city in the background there.
Oh yeah, some buildings here.
Some concrete jungle. Nice. Okay, so I have a few questions that Deb, I'll totally credit Deb, I did not put these together, Deb put together, that I will ask you guys, and I guess, you know, for the purposes of time, I don't think all of you can answer every one. So if someone feels very strongly about answering this question, you know, speak up. And if the audience has questions, please chat them in and I can allocate them properly. All right. What is something that surprised you about college, your college, that you would want another student to know about before heading to college?
And you guys know this is my favorite question, and I make you all ask it when you go on your college visits.
Who wants to take that, or I will assign you?
I can take this one.
Thank you.
Okay, so going to a big school, it's a lot easier to get lost in the shuffle than you think. I feel like this is someone, when I went on college tours, like no one really tells you this. I don't really know why, because this is something I felt the most. I'm a really outgoing person, and I actually struggled a lot making friends at first. I think because they naturally came so easy to me all my life. But when I realized I wasn't really comfortable at the school at first, I kind of stayed in more and watched Netflix because, you know, that's something I was comfortable doing. But then I missed out on a lot of opportunities to make friends. So I struggled more adjusting the same time as everyone else did, because other people were going out and like meeting people and I just wasn't, because I was just uncomfortable. I feel like I was waiting for like the right time to like go out and meet people, like, all right, like now I'm ready. But I guess my advice would just be to, like, there is no right time, like just go and do it. I wish I would have started earlier, like started integrating myself more into the campus, into extracurriculars, because that was just a big surprise for me.
Great.
Okay. Anyone else want to touch that one?
I guess I could. So I think that one thing that really surprised me was that when I got to college, I thought that everyone would know what they wanted to do in life, what their plan was, but in reality, like everyone was still trying to figure everything out, and like people change majors, like find new interests all the time. Like I started as a biomedical engineering major. I quickly switched to become an operations research and industrial engineering major. And then after all of that, I decided to switch over to the liberal arts section. And even though it's like the liberal arts section of the school, I still major in computer science and mathematics, but I just take more humanities classes. And like that process for me took many years. And I've noticed that many students at Columbia have the exact same experience. And so it's totally normal if you don't know exactly what your plan is.
Okay. What are some of the adjustments that you had to make or deal with during your college experience, and how did you handle them? I know a few of you talked about like differences that you've shifted, quitting, you know, track. Allie, I see you unmuted yourself.
So this is definitely something I've thought a lot about. I feel like throughout my 4 years, my social life kind of shifted in chunks where I was involved in all the same activities all 4 years. But I kind of like had niches of groups of people. And so like, for me, that felt a little irregular. And I don't think that's the average college experience, to keep shifting who your closest friends are. But I think like in that light, like trying to figure out what to do with all the open time that you suddenly have in the middle of the day. And like, how do you manage your time with your work in between your classes? And, you know, how do you decide how much social time is enough or too much? And so like, for me, I thought something that worked out really great was like planning some of those things at the beginning of the week. But it's definitely not something that I like consciously thought about going into college, because all the college students are just around and you just kind of assume that these things happen. But that's not always how these things happen. So I think, yeah, to answer the question, I think that I didn't kind of expect the challenge of filling my open time. I didn't realize how much of an effort I needed to make to do that. Because as a high school student, you have after school activities, or you have like before school activities, and everything is just planned. Every day is the same. and college is just not like that.
Right. And especially not with what's going on with the pandemic and everything. It's going to be a little bit more turned upside down. Stone, I saw you unmuted yourself. I don't know if you have any comments
Yeah.
on that.
To piggyback off that, I would agree, and I would say for me the biggest adjustment was time management. Like you just said, through high school you kind of have a routine. Just wake up in the morning, go to school until about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then the rest of your day for either extracurriculars or homework. Whereas universities, college, it's really as flexible as you can get. Classes in the morning, classes at night, classes in the afternoon. You basically have a whole lot of freedom to either spend your time doing something productive or spend your time doing something unproductive. So it's really subjective at that point. But colleges, you also have, as you get older and older, and for some reason for business this is so common, but teachers don't really, some business school teachers don't really want to come in on Fridays as well. So you'll find yourself having, if you get lucky, you might have a semester where you have no classes on Fridays, and you can spend that semester, that Friday, waking up and going to party, or waking up, going to the gym all day, or waking up and actually getting a head start on work. And for me, I had a couple consecutive semesters like that where I'd wake up on a Friday with no classes, and I'd want to get a head start on making sure I don't have everything due on Sunday instead of spraying it out. So for me, the biggest thing was time management, and I'm sure you're experiencing time management all throughout your life, even in high school when you're dealing with sports and other stuff like that. Time management is key, and it's always going to remain key as you graduate and look towards a future career.
Okay.
Let me jump in for a second, Jenna. Somebody asked a question kind of piggybacking what you guys are talking about. How hard is it to manage your academic and social obligations at school? You got all that free time and whatnot, and do you find that balance was hard to strike?
I think that once you're kind of into the swing of things, it's not so bad. Once you get your own system that kind of keeps you organized, it works. I certainly found that I thrive doing like 3 activities and 5 classes at once. And I think it's just a mindset and it's an adjustment. But I think if you're proactive about it, it's not bad.
All right. And I know, some of you guys go to schools in such thriving cities. So I don't know, is there a pressure to go out, and how do you feel maybe balancing the socializing on Friday, Saturday nights with studying for midterms, finals, and other tests?
Yeah. So living in Miami, it's extremely tempting to go out, go to the beach, go out to the bars or the clubs, and it's very, very distracting if you go off the rails. So you see it, and it's definitely not inevitable. So what you kind of have to do is kind of want to make a schedule for yourself. At the same time, you want to surround yourself with people who similar majors, or just have a good roommate who keeps you on track with this kind of stuff. So I'm sure a lot of people can speak on this too. People in college, they'll go out from Tuesday to Saturday. It's insane. And when I found this out, I was like, wow, this is a thing. But you really want to be able to kind of ground yourself and find yourself interested in your major. I think that's a big grounding factor. If you're actually interested in your major and you want to see yourself succeed in the future, you will find motivation to keep yourself in from going out and parties at night. And like I mentioned before, having a strong friend group who can also go to the library with and study. Of course, this part is social distance, but you want to be able to have a solid fallback where you can thrive and pursue your career.
Now, Stoney, you use the term off the rails, and I graduated college 9 years ago, and I had friends that struggled with substance abuse, failed out of school because they couldn't handle the balance. I had a friend who overdosed. I mean, not to get all sad over here. So there's people that truly do go off the rails. So I guess I'm curious, because I know a lot of parents, they get really nervous sending their kids to school. They're gonna, what's gonna happen? Are they gonna be okay with drugs and alcohol? So I guess if you have seen friends or peers of yours really go off the rails, why is that? And how can maybe that be avoided?
Yeah, I guess I'll go off that again. So, like I said, people in college they'll go out, or at least in Miami, they'll go out from Tuesday to Saturday. And I think one of the big signs is lack of going to class. And for college, some people find, especially freshman year, they find themselves by themselves, and no parents there to say, hey, you gotta get to class right now. I think if you or your roommate, or you and one of your freshman floor mates, if you find them not really going to class, or just being acting different, I mean, you don't really know what they're really like until we spend a full year with them. But I think a big factor is not going to class, because that's what the whole educational purpose is about. And that's how the college environment is structured, for you to not spend your entire day having all this freedom to do whatever you want. There's a class structure too, which kind of keeps you grounded. But yeah, I think that's the biggest factor, when people don't really go to class and kind of push off work to the side. And if anyone else wants to add to that, but that's what I've found so far.
Okay, and I don't know, Debra, if you want to touch upon maybe substance abuse, and for parents, like what are the warning signs for that?
Yeah, it's really hard. I feel like, it's become such a normalized part of college that people don't necessarily realize when it's going badly. One of my best friends in high school, his freshman year at Rutgers, he ended up failing out because he finally had this freedom that he didn't have when he was home. And, he just sort of went off the rails. And then I was the opposite when I was in college, where, like Stone, I went to all my classes. I took it very serious what I was doing there. And so I didn't miss, I remember going to classes sick because I didn't want to miss, that's what I was there for. So I think just like looking out for those things where behavior seems different, for parents, if they're missing classes, Stone's right, that's a really big red flag. It's one thing to miss one class, you start getting into 2-3 classes, that there's something else going on usually. Some of my clients, they miss classes for mental health reasons because their anxiety is so bad or their depression is so bad. So it can really be a number of different things that are keeping them from that, but that's a really big red flag when classes start getting missed. I think that, because Stone's right, that's why you're there.
Okay, I don't know. Yes, Deb. You are muted.
I forgot I was muted. I know Caroline has a commitment at 8 o'clock, so I want to give her the opportunity to add any final wise words of wisdom that, she thinks anyone should know about before she hops off.
In general, I just think that there are so many amazing colleges, and there's not going to be exactly one. You might have had a dream school growing up, but there isn't just one college for everyone. I think that there's so many great ones that have so many resources and communities that you can find yourself in. So while you're doing this college applications and all, I remember that it was really stressful, but I would say just don't worry too much about it, because it will work out. Yeah.
Love that.
Wise words. Thank you so much, Caroline, for participating, and go do your fellowship orientation thingy that you have to go do.
Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so I know we talked obviously a lot about mental health for the first half of this. So curious about you guys, if you face mental health issues your own, or if your friends face mental health issues, who is the best people to seek out to support to get the help you need? And how did you personally deal with stress, loneliness, time management issues, being away from home, or anything like that?
Self-care. Anybody want to jump in?
I'll go for it. I'll try to be concise. I would say in terms of self-care, having a routine is super key. For me, having a way to wind down at the end of the day, so my mind is not anxiously spinning, thinking about all the things I have to do that week. That is my biggest piece of advice. For me personally, in terms of self-care and reaching out for support, I'm very close with my family, so those are the first people I go to when I'm kind of upset about something. But I've also spoken to a therapist for 2 years of my college time, and I think in terms of that, it's important to have consistency. Personally, I started seeing a therapist the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, so it was someone here in Bergen County. But I was able to continue phone sessions and keep that consistency, so it wasn't like I was starting over when I went back to school. So that was something that was super helpful for me. Yeah, I think just knowing that it's okay to be struggling, but also, like we were talking about before, like being proactive, talking to people even when you're not feeling like you're struggling, because college is just like a massive transition. And, you know, remembering that also a bajillion other kids are going through this too, and that you're not alone in these anxieties and struggles and all of that. Even if people are pretending that they're okay and posting pretty things on Instagram, they're also having a hard time. They're just not telling you. So yeah, that
is true.
For sure. Anyone else want to add to that? Let me see if anybody unmutes. Nobody unmutes. Okay, we'll move on then. We don't want to put you guys on the spot.
That is a good, like, little signal, I guess.
Yeah, it's okay. So there was a question from the audience. You know, can you talk about any interesting clubs at your school that you'd recommend, or things that were like surprising that you would never have had access to in high school? And just kind of like, what did you get involved with on campus? How long did you take to get involved? Like, did you jump right in, or did you hold back? I'm going to go with a friend. I'm just going to go, like that kind of thing.
I can definitely talk about this. I think it took me a little longer to get involved. I remember we got all these emails about like the first look fair with like all these different clubs. And I went to the fair and like, yeah, something sounded great, but I was still like scared to integrate myself because I wasn't even used to my classes yet, and schoolwork is like a big priority for me. So I was like, all right, like let me just get this under control and then I'll go into clubs. But I kind of wish I just threw myself into them earlier, because it took me longer to figure out like people I was like that had similar interests to me, because I did that, because like I waited. By the time I joined all these clubs, like people already had bonds and stuff, and I just wish I started earlier. But anyway, I'm in Greek life now. I'm the philanthropy chair for that. I'm in an honor society. I'm a Greek ambassador for Terpthon. And I think Terpthon is actually one of my favorite clubs. A lot of schools have like big dance marathons to raise money for different like philanthropies. And to me, I really like this, and it's special to me because my major is accounting, and I like my whole life, like it's like you have to like think about what your values are. Like I really like giving back to people, and I never really found a space to do that in my major. So I was like, all right, how can I do this elsewhere on campus? So for me, that was being philanthropy chair and organizing events for my sorority, and like giving back as a Greek ambassador. So that's how I really integrated myself and just like surrounded myself with people with similar interests.
Great, awesome.
Anyone else?
Yeah, to go off that, it seems like Greek life is a common theme among most of us, the panelists here. So to kind of talk a little bit away from that, because I'm sure most of you guys will have the choice to join that if your school does offer that. I thought it was, I think most schools, or some schools, both the schools where I went to, Elon University and University of Miami, they don't allow you to rush a Greek organization until second semester, which I think is a great idea, because you can kind of really integrate yourself in a bunch of different organizations that allow you to be maybe a pathway to that next organization or whatever you want to do later. So, you know, at Elon, I got involved with club baseball. You know, I loved baseball through high school. I stuck with it. And, you know, when I transferred to Miami, I was old enough, I had enough credits to do the Greek life thing. So I started with that. But I also wanted to really enhance my people skills and, you know, public speaking, as well as, you know, kind of meeting new people and showing people around. So I got involved with the business school ambassadors. So, you know, I met kids like everyone else, or like prospective college students, and they came in and they showed me around the tour of the business school. Kind of like this panelist perspective, where I'm doing Q&As and answering questions about specific challenges that they may be nervous about coming into college. And, you know, it kind of was a full circle, because here I was minus 3 years ago doing the same thing, asking questions. So, you know, you always look to improve yourself, and you can join communities, join clubs that you actually have an interest in, which, you know, I hope you do, but you can also join clubs where you want to improve on yourself. So there's different ways of approaching that.
Stone, can you talk for a second? I'm just going to pick on you because you are the transfer student in the group. Yeah. And, you know, you started out at Elon, you had a choice, and you made the choice to start out at Elon. And then a year and a half later decided that, you know what, I needed a different space. I wanted different things. Can you talk a little bit, compare and contrast, not in a negative, positive way, but like what you feel you gained or how you evolved in your first couple of years, and then how that helped you be ready to handle a much bigger school like Miami.
Yeah, of course. So to give people a little bit more background, I started off with Deb, my high school, and I had Miami as a top choice, and Elon was very close up there too. So in the end, I got into Elon initially, waitlisted on Miami, but towards like May, I got a notification saying that I got off the waitlist, which is like a 1% chance, which I wasn't even expecting. And I ended up sticking with Elon, moreover, because I already met people on the Facebook group and had a roommate, or I met some people from the New Jersey area, which Elon happens to take a lot of people from that area. I guess I also kind of took it a little personal, just, Miami takes me, now they want me back. So I was just like, oh, I'm going to stick with Elon, stand my ground, and, kind of do my own thing. And I really enjoyed my first couple semesters at Elon. And then I kind of realized that I wanted a little bit more for my college experience that I couldn't really get at Elon. And don't get me wrong, Elon is a beautiful college, and for people, it's either you really like it or it's not really for you. And I was on the latter part of that group. So it came back to Deb at a weird time, actually. It was my sophomore year fall semester. So I made the switch into Miami, my third semester of college. My fourth semester of college, my sophomore year spring. And I came in kind of at a random time because, people have their connections already. Some people my age were already in Greek life. Some people were already pretty established with their majors and knowing what they wanted to do. And, I kind of got thrown into a random room with people who I never met before. But, things worked out incredibly great in my direction. The people who I ended up getting randomly assigned to became one of my best friends. And from there, I guess to answer your questions before about some of the compare and contrast between Elon and Miami and what I've gained so far. To kind of look back at Elon, like I said, beautiful campus, and they do have a lot of people coming in from up north. There's a bunch of schools like this that attract a bunch of people from up north. Miami attracts a bunch of people from up north, from the tri-state area. But for me, Miami was a little bit bigger, about mid-size, 16,000 kids. And I kind of felt like that was a great medium for me, not too big, not too small. And Miami also had a pretty diverse background. My mom's from Brazil. I come from a pretty diverse background. So I kind of wanted more of that community around me where, Miami's a very big Latin culture around, from Cuba, from all over the place. So that I kind of want to immerse myself in that. And I guess the biggest difference between Miami and Elon was, like I said before, Elon's a smaller school, so you'll have a chance to have more of a personalized experience with your advisors. And whereas Miami, you might get caught in the clutter a little bit. And for me, I have no regrets to the way I did this. I don't regret going to Elon my first couple of years, because I kind of established what I wanted to do towards the end of what I wanted to do in terms of a major, or how I, it could have been a lot different if I just got thrown into Miami with no discipline, because it's a lot different than Elon. Like I said before, referring to people kind of getting off the rails. I didn't really do much in high school in terms of partying. So I've heard, horror stories of people not really going out much back in their small town in New Jersey or Ohio, and then they get thrown to Miami, and the worst of the worst happens. So I'm really happy I found my footing, my foundation at Elon, and it worked out really well in Miami. I was able to kind of transition into a more defined path. So sorry for rambling a little bit right there, but it was a pretty long journey, and I have no regrets of how I did this, and it's the best decision I made.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I think you're a great example of transferring successfully, and it paid off for you in the end. So sometimes, like, I always tell students when they're so nervous to pick a college, like, even though it's obviously, transferring can bring some, obstacles with it, but like, now is not forever. So if you go to that school and you don't like it, you could leave. I mean, pretty much anything you could do, except maybe when you have kids, you can't really get rid of them. But if you get married, you get divorced, like you always have a choice that you can switch and change and move. And that's the beauty of our life. So that's a conversation for another day, more for Debra. Okay, so I'm just going to conclude it since I know a lot of people want to get off. I'm starving personally, but I'd love to get this final question in. It's a little bit of a two-part all around the room, the Zoom room. What piece of advice would you give to new college students? And what would you do differently if you could do it all over again? So we'll start with Evan.
So wait, could you repeat the question one more?
Yeah, just basically like, what would you do if you could do it all over again?
What would you do if you could do it over
Okay,
again? And what advice would you have?
I mean, okay. The advice I would definitely give is try everything. Even if it's something that you don't think that you're interested in, just like go to one meeting, go to, you know, talk to one person who you know is in that club. I tried out after I stopped running track. I knew a kid in my class who did rugby, and I was like, hey, when are your practices? And he told me, and I showed up for one practice, and I was like, I like football better, but okay. And I didn't show up again. But definitely just, you know, throw yourself in someone else's shoes. Try things that you don't necessarily like. Sometimes I'm out really surprised, and a lot of my friends at school did things like that. But like I said earlier, I mean, I wouldn't really change anything about my experience. I got pretty lucky with the way things turned out for me my freshman year. I made a really big decision to quit what I had focused so much of my life on beforehand, and kind of recuperating from that decision took about a month and a half to 2 months to be like, okay, like track was a part of my life that was probably the biggest part, and it's gone. But now I need to focus on, you know, what's next. So that was like the hardest part for me, but I would still make that same decision today.
Awesome. Allie?
Yeah, so I think what piece of advice I would give is just like, don't be afraid to ask questions and get to know your professors. I know like it seems sort of intimidating at first, but that just like creates really valuable connections. And I guess like the advice that I would have given to myself is to just, again, like challenge yourself more and try new things. I think I was really good at that, you know, in terms of taking classes and studying abroad and taking leadership positions, but like socially, even though I was in Greek life, I actually wasn't that social. And I think that's like a way I could have challenged myself more, and I probably could have made a wider range of friends than I have now. So that's food for thought.
Allie, I love study abroad. That would be, even though, you know, I'm graduated 9 years ago now, that would be my thing. If someone asked me, like, what's your advice for people if you can go abroad? And I feel bad saying that now because I don't know what's happening with the pandemic and international travel. If you can go abroad, do it, even if it's 3 weeks. I mean, I did a semester. How long did you do, Allie?
I went for a semester to Ireland, and then I actually also got a summer job in New Mexico last summer. So it was like study abroad 2.0.
Yeah, New Mexico is different than New Jersey, so I will count that. Yeah, so definitely if you guys do get the chance, do it, including everyone, you know, on the panel, depending on what happens. Brianna?
So to kind of just echo what they were saying, like, just don't wait for anything to come to you. I know that was a theme, like a lot of the things I said, like whether it be like friends or tutors, like don't be scared to like ask for help or going to those extra office hours. Even if you're like, you're missing a hangout with friends, like if you know it's going to help you, like do it. Just don't wait to like involve yourself in any extracurriculars. Like they were saying, like just try everything, see what you like, see what you don't. You're going to meet a lot of people on the way and you're not going to know, but they could play like a big part in your life like later. For me, I still make connections with my professors, even though I have classes of like 200 plus people. I still, like on the first day of class, I'm the one to like shake their hand. And I remember when I was applying for the business school, because I came in undecided, I actually needed like a letters of recommendation. And if I hadn't done that, introduced myself to the professors, I would have struggled and I probably wouldn't have gotten in, honestly. So I'm just really thankful. Like I did still make connections with my professors. I wasn't intimidated by like the big school.
Great. We'll conclude with Stone.
All right, so I guess my piece of advice would be to, make sure you have someone that you have that whether it's a parent or a friend from back home, we originally started like a foundation where you can kind of tone into and, you know, keep up with. And, you know, change is good. A lot of people say like change since high school, blah, blah, blah. But it's always important to have someone that you've known since you were younger, to kind of anchor you and kind of guide you through the whole path of kind of see you develop. And, you know, that person be the person, the one that tells you to say, hey, maybe you're acting a little different. Maybe you want to try focus on this, try doing less of that, focus more on school versus going out. I think it's important to have someone to kind of, you know, keep you rooted from where you were from. And like I said, change is good, but, you know, there's also such thing as a bad change. So keep yourself rooted from where you're from and have someone that can kind of stick with you as you go through your 4-year experience, or more than that. It could be more than 4 years. But and I guess one thing that I would have changed, or would like to done differently, I think I mentioned before about, you know, knowing more about majors, as well as it's also never too early to kind of start honing your professional resume. I know I don't mean to sound intimidating, but you know, you could do internships your freshman year or your sophomore year. I know a lot of people kind of want to get back to the summer of your hometown, that first summer of freshman year, but it's never too early to kind of get a little head start if you know what you want to do. And yeah, I guess that's my 2 cents right there.
Great. Thanks, everyone. This was super helpful. Thank you, Debra, Brianna, Allie, Stone, Evan, and Caroline, who had to leave. I think that's it. Debra, do you want to, you know, turn it over to conclude it?
Me, Debra, or the other Debra?
I know, which Debra?
I guess, well, Debra Shames, or anyone else have any final thoughts, anything that they, you know, feel compelled to express to the attendees that have stayed with us throughout this time?
I have one thing I want to throw out to Allie, because Allie, you're the only one on here who goes to a really small school. And I know I have students all the time very concerned about going to a small school. It's going to be claustrophobic. I need something 10 times the size of my high school. I'm going to know everybody. Like, can you just speak to that really briefly?
Yeah, so at a small school with like a, you know, tiny perimeter of a campus or whatever, like you do run into people when you're walking around, but it's not claustrophobic. You don't run out of people. Like I said before, my friend group constantly changed. I had the same group of acquaintances because I was involved in like theater and a cappella all my 4 years, but there's still always new people coming in and out. It is not claustrophobic, but if you do feel claustrophobic, take a walk with a mask.
I like that.
Good
Any other final parting words? Debra, do you have any other comments that you want to leave anybody, like final thoughts?
Oh God, I don't know. I mean, I feel like everybody said a lot of what, you know, the same kinds of things I was thinking about. Keeping a routine and putting yourself out there, you know, pushing through your anxiety. I think it's the one thing I wish I did more because of my anxiety going to college. I think it kept me from doing more, but I tried my best. I did what Brianna said too. I introduced myself to professors and I really tried to put myself out there. I joined Greek Life too. You know, like I think you just try to make those connections with other human beings and talk about your experience. I think we get so caught up in not wanting to be vulnerable to people that it really limits, you know, our experiences with other people. You know, I think we're so scared to do it, and then we do it, it makes them feel like they can be vulnerable with us too. And so you just find those connections when you share those things that I think in general we're raised to, like, don't talk about that, you know, don't talk about your anxiety, don't tell other people that. But when you do, it's amazing because you'll find so many other people that struggle in the same ways, and then that's a really nice way to connect with other people too, and just bring people closer together, you know?
Yeah.
For sure.
A lot of people are struggling with anxiety that you would have no idea because they all tell me about it.
I keep getting those calls. You know, at some point I'm gonna have to say
like
no.
For Debra, for you it's different. You know, going into it that they have something that they want to share with you. For me, it's just like, let's talk about college, and then it's like, oh, by the way, and you would have no idea, right? So I think if more people talk about it, that's why I'm all about breaking the mental health stigma.
Well, yeah, it's like destigmatizing it, you know, right? Like so many people struggle. It's not really that strange anymore, but there's still just this like, oh, there's something wrong. And it's like, I don't like saying that there's something wrong because, like, to me, it doesn't matter what that issue is. It's just like, okay, well, how can we work through it now? You know, it doesn't matter what we call it. Like, who cares?
Yeah,
like,
I know. And I think the new generations, so the millennials,
Gen
Z,
We're
Z,
getting there.
we're doing it. We're
Yeah.
good. Everyone hates on us, but like we're good. All right, cool. Thanks everyone for taking time on your Tuesday night to join us. I will have the recording on YouTube so you can all see your beautiful faces on there and send it to your friends and family. And I think that's it. Thanks for coming out to both.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking the time. Audience, thank you for taking the time and spending the time with us, and our expert panelists. Really appreciate your insights, because I think that's going to help a lot of students as they navigate going off to college in the fall. And we have students on here who are still just beginning to go through the college process.
Yeah, and good luck everyone.
Yeah, good luck. Have a great night.
Bye.